what's going on? Welcome along to episode 75 of the Strategy and Conversions podcast. I'm Jamie Michael Joseph, and as always, I'm joined by Mr. Mark Tanner.
Hello, everyone. Brilliant.
Mark, back once again, doing that whole thing that we usually do 2 hours before, maybe a little bit longer now, 3 hours before, talking. Time goes by, we say, look, let's hit record and do a podcast, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just like, it's always a pleasure. It's never a chore speaking with you. But it is funny where I guess we exhaust everything that we're talking about. And then we get to the podcast and we go, what are we talking about today?
Yeah.
Let's just hit record and, we'll bring something on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it is good. Our sessions are fantastic because so much comes out of it. So many new ideas and different ways. I mean, the things we talked about today have sparked off new ideas. And it's just, it's a bit like when I used to be in a mastermind, but this is just two of us getting together. And the amount of ideas that come out of just two of us working together. So this is where the power of mastermind, when you've got 5 or 6 people, just kind of really just talking about something, when it's all about business growth, the amount of ideas that come out, you don't have to take all of them, but it just gives you so much stuff to work with. You think, well, okay, that I'll prioritize that. I'll look at this, and then these other things I can look at later on. But it's amazing the power of that mastermind, as people call it.
And that is perfect, isn't it? Like, you don't have to take all the things that come out of it, all the ideas, all the different tactics or anything like that. It's picking the one that makes the perfect sense to you and moving forward with that. And that could be for personal stuff, it could be for business. Like you said, that whole kind of mastermind. I know we spoke about this quite a few times on the podcast, but we'll just run through it again, where we go back to that book, Think and Grow Rich. And it talks about the power of the mastermind in there. And that mastermind is that, you're talking, I'm talking, two minds together form a higher mind. Where it's like those mind, the ideas are just bouncing off each other to grow, to elevate. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Just that elevation.
Yeah.
Now, we did the podcast last week and we spoke about, I know what to do, so why don't I do it? And it's that topic that we've heard it so many times throughout the years, and we've probably experienced that ourselves, and we know everyone can relate to that in some sort of way. But we spoke about that where it's just like, right, okay, I know what to do, so why don't I do it? And it makes sense to expand on that and just talk around, putting it into an example of business today. And we're going to use 2 businesses that we know. One that comes back and forth every now and again, that wants help but never takes the step forward, versus one who did take that step forward. And we're going to do basically like a tale of 2 businesses, right?
A tale of 2 businesses. Yeah. That sounds good to me.
Yeah. Mate, anything you want to add on that before?
And we're just going to show, and rather than talk about theory we're going to talk about the cost of inaction, but rather than just talk about the theory of, by not taking action, you're leaving this on the table. We actually can. We're talking proper stories of people, so proper business experiences that we've had with people when we work with people, because it's easy to talk about things without putting any figures on it, that kind of, without being disclosing too much, without putting figures on it. But when people actually understand what figures are involved, when you say, what is your cost of inaction, and actually showing the cost is this, that's the thing that starts to make people think, oh, hang on a minute, that's a lot of money to be leaving on the table, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Massive, isn't it? That part there, leaving money on the table. Now, I think probably all of us can relate to that in some sort of way, where we didn't take a stance on something, we didn't make a move. We didn't decide, okay, we're going to do that. We shied away from it for whatever reason. Maybe we weren't confident in it. I was actually saw something the other day, and I was meaning to message it over to you, mate. I forgot all about it, but it's just coming back into my head now. And it just said, are you worried about people saying no, or are you worried about people saying yes? And it was like that whole kind of thing of, like, I guess sales more than anything, but more so about putting yourself out there. Like, what's the thing? Are you worried about getting that knocked back, or are you worried if they actually say, yeah, let's do it?
Yeah, there's a big thing that used to be around, still around now in the coaching world, wasn't it? It was the fear of success. And people talk about the fear of failure, and you can understand that in a lot of cases where people have that or is this, am I the right person to do this? Is it going to work? And they have that fear of failure. And by having that mindset of fear of failure, often it can lead to failure. But the opposite of that is a fear of success. And that's a fear, that's a different fear altogether. Oh, what if they say yes and I can't manage it? What happens if all of a sudden I get all these people wanting more work and I can't do it myself, or I can't do it, this happens or that happens and I can't deliver. And that's kind of that fear of being successful, and in, and people get comfortable. And I've found this in not just in business, but in so many different ways of places, parts of life. People get comfortable being in a place where they can have a bit of a moan and a whinge that things aren't going right for them. When you say, well, yeah, but if you did this, you could put it right. Well, straight away, oh, I'm not sure. Oh, what do you mean I could put it right? So, well, if you did something, you took some action here, made this possible, and this is both personal and business life. If you did this and made this, and this was the result, how happy would you feel then? And all of a sudden, they'll tell you they might feel happy, but you can tell by the way they tell you that they're worried. They say it with a kind of a, well, I guess I would be happy. And it's that hesitation. You know that actually, I remember you've spoken this before, isn't it? How much do they really want it?
Mm.
You've got to want it to be able to get there, and that having that reservation on, well, I wouldn't mind having that kind of business. That's not convincing anybody, let alone yourself. And again, we talk about the power of the universe and all the universal mind and everything. Is that if you're putting those kind of thoughts out there, you've got it's kind of a dichotomy. On one side, you're saying you're trying to convince yourself maybe that you want it, but actually you'll say, no, I don't want it. And that's and yeah, and so nothing happens. You just have kind of a stalemate.
And that's this. Let's roll forward with the first company then, because like you said, nothing happens, right? I think that's a perfect route into that one. So we're going to take company A. We're going to give this person the name of Sandra, right? So Sandra has a shop, and a bit of an online presence. Nothing kind of major, it's not a shop online or anything like that. It's a local shop. Sandra does all right, built the business up to doing like 500,000, so 500,000 turnover a year, has some staff, everything like that. All seems to be ticking along nice, for probably 4 years. They've been back and forth about, I definitely need some help with marketing. I need some help with strategy. I need some help with growth, all this kind of stuff. Never presses the button, never, moves forward.
That's right.
It's always, let's get close to that start line, but let's never get past it, and stuff like that. And I guess maybe that's a point to start with. We'll circle back onto it, mate. But I think that's a good place to start with. That they've shown intention, but is it real intention? Because they kind of keep saying, okay, let's run forward, but never do. What has happened with them also? Look, obviously, COVID, pandemic, and everything like that. Everyone, was infected in some sort of way. They had a reverse effect, or it actually boosted their business. So they did quite well through that period. And what's happened then is they've come out of that period, and they've gone, do you know what? We're thinking that we're going to do less in sales, moving forward. So they're going to have a decrease in sales. They've also now experienced an increase in the costs, because obviously cost of living, stuff like that. Their kind of electricity bill has tripled, and maybe even quadrupled and stuff like that. So now they're in a situation where they're expecting that they're going to have a decrease in sales. They've probably got money that they borrowed during the period as well, like bounce back loans or something like that have to be paid back also. They've got an increase in costs, and they're just like, we've got to make an extra 50 plus grand a year, just to kind of make the same money that we were making last year.
That's right, because of it's all those overheads, isn't it? The overheads creep up, and if we're not keeping aware of, I remember you telling me that the I think it's the staff parking as well, isn't it? All that's gone up as well. So it's a kind of overheads that you for staff welfare, that kind of thing. They'll all start creeping up, and it came as a bit of a realization, didn't it, to Sandra? I think at the beginning of the year that, wow, I suddenly got to make this much just to stay where I am, and as opposed to making any kind of profit at all. And you think, okay, so um, what are you going to do? And that's where it stayed.
And that's the thing, isn't it? So what are you going to do? It's like, well, look, you really, I guess you do have two options. I was going to say you only have one option, which is to make more money,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
To make more. The other option is you downsize in some sort of way. Now, no one wants that, right? No one wants to be
no,
downsizing stuff like that unless you're streamlining your operation to make it work better, and you can do that by downsizing. But even if you do that downsizing, you still won't be making more money. That's
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's the whole kind of point there, right?
yeah,
So when you look at that, going, okay, what do we do? The whole kind of point around that is we need to make more sales. Okay, so how do we make more sales? So we need to look at, we call it mass, where we look at marketing and sales systems, right? So we need to put some sort of marketing and sales systems in place to be able to sell the products and stuff like that, to be able to not just make more money, but to be able to measure it, to be able to go,
yeah,
look, does this make sense? And also from previous conversations with Sandra, we obviously know that she is spending money. So
mm,
money is being spent on marketing already. Things seem to be kind of going okay. There's no real measurement in place. There's some data, but they don't know how to, go through it or anything like that. But as a whole, they're kind of going, right, okay, nothing's kind of broken as far as I can see. So why change it? Why try to fix it?
yeah, and but the danger is there, isn't it? Like you just said, there's no measurement. So the ads campaign, we know that's going reasonably well. So they're putting an amount of money into or Sandra's putting an amount of money into the ads campaign, and Sandra's getting a return for the ads. But there's no understanding of, well, what which ones are working better than the others, what products are going better than the others. There's no measurement of, well, if I changed or tweaked, or if I did more of this and less of this, maybe the return would be even better. And then it comes back down to, you think, well, and the bottom line is, well, if you're spending whatever, just say spending £1,000 and you're getting 3 grand back in, and your ads are giving you 3 grand's worth of business. I don't know what the profit margin is there, but you say, well, why don't you chuck 5 grand into the ads if they're doing that? What if it's a percentage of 3 to 1? Why scale it? I mean, it's as simple as that. Yeah, by all means, tweak it to get better. But if it's working, then those are the kind of opportunities you have to say, right, this is working well for me. I need to put more money into this. And it's not money, you're not, it's invested money. It's an investment, because the whole point of the whole um, premise of the investment is you put money in and you get more back. That's what an investment means. So they're putting £1,000 in, getting 3 grand. So put in, if you could, yeah, if you say, well, let me find 5 grand to put in and make 15, and I'll up my budget every month until I'm eventually putting in 10 grand and going to 30 grand, until there will become a point where it suddenly doesn't quite work as well. But then then you know what you're doing. But measure which of those ads are working and why they're working and what are they selling that's working, and what in this case, which particular product line is producing that huge amount that they're getting from it, and which product line isn't really generating any kind of income, because those are where the places you need to start tweaking. But we said this before, unless you're measuring, you don't know. You have no idea.
That's the big thing, isn't it? That measurement, you get to go, okay. And we're not just talking money as well. We're talking just time, we're talking
Mm,
energy and stuff like that. Is that, like you said, out of that £1,000, and yeah, I think they're paying a little bit less, but there is
okay, yeah,
there is that 3 times return that they're getting at the minute. But it's like, if you take £1,000, if they were spending £1,000 a month, you know what, it could be that £50 out of that £1,000 a month is actually producing the three
yeah,
times
yeah,
return, right? And it's like, well, actually, you could then take that budget and put it all in to the one
mm,
that's working. You could then look to put some of it into that, or you could build ones around that. You could look to try different things then. But you know that if you looked at that data for the past 6 months and you go, these types of ads aren't working here, well, look, let's just bin them off.
Yeah.
Let's move that into something else that can do it. And we could take that money out of the ads and we could put it into something else, to
Yeah.
make it work. There are so many different things that this business can do. We've even been through it. We've actually had a session ourselves where we've gone through it and been like, right, as soon as they press the button, this is what we're doing. Right. And I think there was even a podcast episode a while back where we actually explained some of the things that we were thinking around it to expand the business. And it was this business as well that we were talking about. And it was just that case of going, right, okay, but where is the extra money coming from? How can it come from different places and stuff like that? And there's so much that they can do. But what's really interesting here is, we're not saying as well that they have to go with us because we're the best or something like that. We know we're good at what we do. We help people on a daily basis, help like basically do this kind of thing, whether they're doing it themselves or with some sort of guidance and they use other people and stuff like that. But I can remember talking with Sandra a while back, and she basically said, "Oh, I know of she's doing all the kind of social posts and stuff like that herself, right? And scheduling them up. Nothing comes from it." She says, "Oh, okay, I know of a company who do social media and they charge £100 a month to do all the social media, right? I know it's going to be no good, but I think for £100, why not give it a shot?" And it's like, right, okay, but if you know it's going to be no good, why even waste the time? It's just a case of it saves her from doing them herself, right? But nothing's going to come from it. So nothing's coming from it now. By increasing your cost by another £100 a month, nothing's going to come from it. And it's probably still going to take you a bit of time in that process and everything like that. Or you could probably pay triple, maybe a little bit more, and actually bring an agency in that do know what they're doing and they can look after that part. It's like, it is insane when you break it all down and you go, look, if you know this. So like we said, why is it that something is stopping you, from going ahead? When you look at it on a big, kind of scale, you look at it, you've kind of wanted to do something for ages, right? But nothing has encouraged you to overstep that mark and go, yes, okay, here's the money to do so. You're expecting a decrease in sales. You're expecting an increase in costs. You don't know what to do. You've got to find a bit of an extra kind of 50K. You need to make more sales. Got someone there saying we can help you with this, and you're still not pressing that button.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, right, because we were speaking earlier about it, and the first thing is that obviously that just 2 points, well, 1.2 points, I guess, coming from that is the £100 for them is comfortable, for Sandra is comfortable to throw at something, which is crazy anyway. But £100, but anything more, maybe she's not very comfortable with throwing at something. But throwing away £100 is ridiculous because, like you said, if she doesn't think it's going to get the results, then they're probably not going to get the results. So there is that kind of mental, I could £100, I can throw £100 at this. That kind of mental comfort level. But you say, well, how about throwing £500 at it? Ooh, hang on, and that's beyond. That's a little bit pushing them too far. And that's the first thing. But the second thing we would talk about is that Sandra is so sucked in with doing everything and managing everything and trying to keep all the balls afloat, all the balls in the air, and just trying to manage this business. And we were saying it's a bit like water draining down a plug. The water gets sucked down a plug, and she's being sucked in by just the whole thing. So she can't be moving forward. And in fact, if they don't find that 50K, they are going to be moving backwards. And again, we said that it's probably not going to affect Sandra's money that she takes out of the business, but it may lead to the business having to be downsized, which, like you said, no one wants. And that's a slippery slope. Once you start in that mindset of downsizing to cut costs and not to increase profits, then how far do you go? Cutting costs.
There's that compound effect, isn't there? And it's like it's momentum, but moving backwards,
going backwards. Yeah.
So like you said, like her money may not change, but it means that they're going to probably have to let a member of staff go. And if they let a member of staff go, well, who picks up that then? So more strangers to the other staff.
Exactly.
Sandra then has to come in and do more. So maybe she has to take part in some of the actual stuff going on in the shop rather than trying to manage it. And it's a big part here as well, is looking at it going, there's that classic kind of term, isn't there, of working on the business versus working in the business. is that at some point, as a business owner, especially if you get into that kind of money, I can't remember if I mentioned this, like £500,000 turnover.
Yeah, half a turnover. Yeah.
So £500,000 turnover. At what point do you go, I'm a business owner rather than a business manager?
Yeah, yeah, that's right, and that's so difficult, and that's that. I think this is Sandra's company's been going quite a while, hasn't it? I think.
Yeah, over a decade, yeah.
Yeah, so they're not even at that. They're not even at micro business level because they've been going such a long time, and they've got some very very long standing customers, as we know. But the thinking is still at that micro business level. The thinking is that it's even though it's a limited company, the thinking is it's my business and not a separate entity. And this is interesting because when people say to me, from when they talk to me, because of obviously they know I've been an accountant, and they say to me, "Should I set up a sole trader or a limited company?" And you say to them, "Okay, well, this is what it means with sole trader. You are the business, and so you live or die by the business succeeding or failing. If you're a limited company, it means you've got limited liability, and it's becomes a third party. So you are a director, and it falls on deaf ears with people. They don't really quite understand what you're talking about. But the whole point here is that I've lost my thread now.
I just
The
just
whole
picking up
point.
on that. Just picking up on that point, mate. For our listeners around the world, there will be a similar thing
Oh yeah, sorry.
in your
Yes,
country, right? So it's either you
yeah,
set up as yourself or you set up as a business entity.
yeah. And the whole point is that the limited company, it is a separate entity. If you have a limited or this incorporated company, whatever it is, you are now not the business. You are a director of the business, but you have a responsibility to make that business grow and for all the people those that are employed in that business. As a director, you have a responsibility to do the best you can for them. As part of in this country, in the UK, that's part of the director's charter. Is that you meant to run it in a really really efficient way, um, and Sandra still has this in mindset, if you like, that she is the business and not the owner or director of a third entity, and that is so dangerous for people who grow. And I've seen it in another country. My son-in-law, I guess he's my stepson, but he's son-in-law. He works for a company in Poland, a very, very successful company. When the Iron Curtain came down, they set up this company, and it's been going from strength to strength. And they work with Kellogg's and people selling all sorts of nutrition bars and that kind of thing, cereals and that kind of stuff. And it was run by four brothers, one has died, two of which have basically pulled out. And the reason they pulled out is they can't get on with the brother that owns it because he runs it as his company. And James is my stepson-in-law is always on the phone going on about how he's destroying the company, and he's not really destroying the company because it's pretty successful. It's got a perpetual, but he can't think as a business director. He can only think about it being his company, and it affects everybody in the company. And they have such a turnover of staff, such a high turnover that not long back, I thought that Kellogg's were going to pull out. If Kellogg's pull out, I think they work with PepsiCo and Kellogg's, and either one, if they pull out, will not destroy the company, but it will massively affect the company. And going back to Sandra, she's in that same position where she can't think of it as a director. What can I do for the best of the company? Instead of thinking, I've got to do this, I've got to do more of this, I've got to do more of that. Because, when you start off in business as a sole trader, there isn't anyone else. And that's what you do have to do. And you have to pick up everything. But there comes a point, and the quicker you can delegate and let things go to, say, a bookkeeper or VA, and then staff to help you out, the quicker your business will prosper. But until you get to that point, you are the thing that's holding the business back, which is obviously true of this company in Poland, and probably true of Sandra. She's holding her business back.
Interesting, isn't it? I mean, we should definitely do another podcast episode on that of being reliant on a couple of clients to see you all the way through and stuff like that. I think that's really interesting. But yeah, exactly that. It's just a case of going. I come back to that kind of term that you you use the other month, and it seems to be a thing now that I use every day, and it's about being intentional, right? Because I think that the whole kind of thing with being intentional, if you go back to Sandra and that whole thing of I'm thinking I might spend £100 on that social media, it won't work, but I'm thinking about spending £100 on it. It's like, well, what's the point, right? You're hoping now that by spending £100 a month, it's going to bring you that extra 50k that you need, and it's like, I mean, I'll take a few of those if they're going right. Turning that £100 a month into 50k. And don't get me wrong, there may be some people out there that will help. Obviously, we always talk about there being that compound effect, and you're only one offer away, and you just need to get in front of the right people and stuff like that, and you get that snowball effect. But if you flip it and make quickly, like running through the options that we've given Sandra, right? We've got two options there. We've got one which is momentum builder. It's a couple of £100 a month, and that there is more about aspirations, accountability, training, and just making sure that they're on that right track and giving them guidance and direction. And then we get into what we call the 3X strategy, and this is our consulting, and that's a couple of £1,000 a month, right? Now it's like, if you're really intentional about growing your business and you're going, I need to make an extra 50k. Well, actually, an extra £2,000 a month for people to come in and actually plan out what exactly needs to happen and to work with our staff and all this kind of stuff. Being really intentional, well, that will grow the business.
Yeah.
But it's a case of going, I might chug £100 at something because I don't have to do the work then.
Yeah.
It is like, is it just a case of really, you don't believe in the growth of the business? You're not really interested in that growth, or like, what is it?
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because people, when you talk to people about the fear of success, people look at you and say, "Well, why would I be scared of succeeding?" But it's because people like where they are, and they like all the baggage that comes around them where they are. And if Sandra got that suddenly got that big impetus in the business, easily met the 50k that she has to increase, but actually increased it more by, say, um, not just 50k, but maybe
Maybe double.
maybe double, whatever, and the business starts to grow. It's almost like she steps out of her comfort zone. It's she hasn't got anything to moan about, and she hasn't got anything to worry about, and she's now thinking, I'm in a position I've never been before, and that can be scary for some people, which is weird. But and I think this is the whole point. Again, going back to that intentional living thing. If you intend your business to grow, you start thinking as if it already is starting to grow. You start thinking in a different way, and maybe changing your attitude, and even researching what it's like and mixing with people who already have that size of business and the kind of things they think about and everything. But if you're not intentional and it starts to grow, it can cause problems. I mean, again, one of the classic things in this country, and I'm sure in other countries as well, is when you get somebody who wins the lottery. So you get somebody who suddenly wins. They've been not a pauper, but they've been living, not particularly prosperous life going on. All of a sudden they win, I don't know, what, 60 million quid or something, And how many stories have you heard that people don't know what to do with it? And it leads to suicide, it can lead to stress, and it can lead to them to blowing 100 million in 1 year, and they're on the streets because not only have they blown the 60 million, but they borrowed now and they can't, they borrowed off the stuff, the money.
It's insane how many of those stories there are, right?
And massive, aren't they?
Yeah.
Massive.
It's just
it's all to do with the mind. If you're not prepared to win, say 60 million, 80 million, or whatever, and I'm serious about saying that, if you don't plan, what would you do with it? And this is a story that people say in the lottery here, don't they? Say, what would you do if you won 60 million? And a lot of them have got things planned out, and they're the ones that if they ever did win that 60 million, it wouldn't shock them because they're actually thinking, oh, I know what to do. That I can give 10 million to my uncle, whatever, and 10 million to my dad and mum and dad or whatever, and their kids and stuff. And they have it kind of mapped out, but that's why people ask you to map it out, not just because it's a fun exercise to do, like you might think is a bit irrelevant, but it's actually to get you in the mind that actually, if you did win that tomorrow, you'd have an idea what you were going to do with it. It would change your life, but it wouldn't wreck your life necessarily. It may do, but
Which is just thinking it as well, mate. We've had conversations with business owners who have sold their business, and it's like
yeah,
once they've sold their business, they're kind of like, what now?
what now? Yeah, yeah,
It takes away that thing, and this sounds quite a down sort of topic to kind of discuss, right? But you also hear the same thing with like people who retire, right? So
yeah,
people put their whole life and then it gets to retirement, and within 5 years they're dead. And
yeah,
it's like because they
absolutely.
just have no kind of drive and no kind of anything to do. And I think sometimes in business we mentioned this before about are you just repeating the same year in business every year? That there's no growth. You're just kind of going through the motions. And I guess in Sandra's point, that is the case. You're just repeating. You've grown to a certain level that you're just repeating that,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there's
yeah,
no purpose, there's no driver or anything like that. You're not intentional about growing. You're just quite happy being content in your kind of world and drawing your salary and stuff like that, and maybe not having the headache of more customers or more
mm,
sales, more staff or anything like that.
yeah. And it's like it is that comfort zone, isn't it? And I think that it's such a dangerous place to be. I was a guy I remember. There's one of the networks that I used to be in, and he said I get very afraid when I feel comfortable. And he said because there's something I'm missing. I'm in a comfort zone, and that's never a good place to be. And he was always looking every time that something happened that right, what can I do now to push myself further to get out of my comfort zone? Not because he was a learning junkie or had to get more business, had to succeed more. But it's just that he knew that he wasn't growing. If he was in his comfort zone, that comfort bubble, I should say, um, he wasn't growing anyway. Nothing was happening, and that scared him. It
Yeah.
really scared him, and he was always striving for ways to get to push that. And he inspired me to start thinking that way as well, to get out of it. Don't sit and be comfortable because that things happen and you don't realize they're happening. And I think again, this is probably coming back to Sandra's case where she woke up and smelt the coffee and thought, oh, 50K, where am I going to get that from? And actually, it's quite easy to get that from. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were talking about this earlier. There's only a few things that need to be put in place, and all of a sudden she's got the 50K, and B, you could double, triple it, treble it in the business she's in now. We know ways, and I think we've even suggested it. But yeah,
And that's the thing. We suggested what to do and stuff like that, and but the big thing there, like you said, now, so someone may be listening to this and they may be thinking, making an extra 50K, like, wow, that sounds really tough. And then maybe people thinking 50K, like,
yeah.
what's that
Of
kind of
course,
thing?
of course.
And it's like the big thing here, like in all honesty, is that like 500K turnover to 550K turnover, 10% increase isn't much, right?
It isn't
You
much.
know, and you can make that happen anyway. But the big thing here is that from conversations that we've had, we've addressed several different points where you're just like, you're not doing this, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you're not doing that. If we started putting those in place by a fraction, we've done the whole kind of, if you've ever seen the 3X strategy that we do, where we're just like, you just need to increase this part by this,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
part, and you can double your business. It's
yeah,
like, you can easily start to move forward and make even more than that. But you have
yeah,
to be intentional about wanting that and moving forward. And let's flip it on its head. Let's look at company B, and
yeah.
we'll give this
That's
person the name of Danny. So
yeah,
Danny has
Danny.
a
Okay.
company a few years back, similar position, right? Around 500K turnover, few staff in place, localish business, not in retail, but in a service-based business. Decides, I want to grow.
Mm. But
Bring in
decided,
decided that
but
this
really decided. Yeah, yeah,
being intentional. They go, okay, look, I'm in. They spent money. They spent money with us. They spent money on systems. They spent money on the right advice in different ways for their industry and stuff like that. We can obviously take all the kind of credit, but we can say we were involved in their kind of growth. Where now they do a good few million turnover.
mm.
Yeah, right. And what was the big difference in that? Coming back to mass, marketing and sales systems and the right kind of processes done with the staff. And
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure you all had some stuff in there around the right kind of mindset and stuff like that,
exactly.
and letting go. But it is that process of the big part here was empowering other people
Yeah,
to help support the growth of the business.
and that in the the aspirations coaching that we do as part of the momentum builder, that is such a big thing. Is that once you become intentional about, right, I am going to grow, you just automatically become more enthusiastic, and that rubs off on other people. So if you've got an amount of staff that with you, and you say, right, okay, this year we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to put this in place because we're going to grow. And the staff suddenly think, yeah, great, let's go for it. And of course, the more we grow, the more you'll get paid. You might get better commissions, this kind of stuff. But we're going to really make it happen. And they did. And if you go back to quickly, because I know we don't want to stay there, going back to the other company, if they start downsizing, those staff are not going to get a very good message. So going back to Danny's company,
I think
the staff got a great message.
Let's go into that a bit more, because that downward spiral happens quickly.
Yeah.
But we talk about that compound effect. Like you said, someone doesn't have that interest. They can see, oh, they got rid of Tom last week, because they're not making money. I might start looking for another job now. And your best member of staff is now looking for another job because they can see the downturn of the business. Yeah. And all because, you've started to have that downward, the cost of increase and stuff like that. They're not going to stick around. No one wants to be in a hole trying to get them out and stuff like that. They're going to look at what's going on. And like you said, you flip that then to that environment, the winning environment, where they're just like, right, these are our targets. This is what we want you to do. You're going to empower this. We're going to bring people in to help you with that. We're going to hire these people here as well to support us. All of a sudden, there's a buzz around the office. People are like, yeah, we're on this. That actually comes through them when they're talking to clients, when they're looking at opportunities as well. They're coming up with their own opportunities and going, what if we try this? What if we do that? Yeah. And again, that mastermind, all of a sudden, you've got all these people working together to just elevate, up level, the service of the business.
That's right. And the aspirations and the goals don't have to be huge. I mean, okay, in this case, they've gone from 500,000 to 2-3 million turnover, which was quite a big step.
And also on that, I mean, that wasn't a case of they sat down one day and go, let's go from 500,000 to 3 million or whatever it was. That's the space of 3-4 years.
Yeah. Okay.
But what happened initially was that let's grow the business by 30%.
And that was going to come on to that. That's the point. It doesn't have to be huge growth. It just said, right, we're going to do this, and we're going to start growing sustainably, incrementally. We're going to do and people then, because if you come out of the pie and say, right, okay, we've got 500,000 turnover business now, and even if you said in 3 years we're going to be turning over 5 million, a lot of people can't comprehend the difference between 500,000 and 5 million, and 3 years is but what does that mean to us now? But if you say, no, this year we're going to grow by 30%. This is what we're intending to do. It's much more realistic. People can think about that, and they it's kind of like tangible. They can see that. Okay, what do we need to do it? And that's the question they get asked, as opposed to, 3 years time. What does that mean for me? They're now saying, so what do we need to do to make that happen? And then, as you said, they're being constructive. They're coming up with their own ideas as well, and they might go into the boss and say, you know what, this is something we do all the time, and it's a real inefficient way of doing something. How about if we join these dots, and you look at a system or something that's available, think, hey, we could do that. Yeah, join those dots, save, I don't know, a bit of lead time on delivery, and just that initial process makes things more efficient, gets even more prospects coming into the funnel, for example, and all of a sudden that one idea has generated its own income, its own little amount of turnover, and all those little pockets of ideas then can be worked on in a team. You say, right, okay, today, I mean, especially if you had a kind of a business review type approach on a monthly basis, say, today so-and-so came up with a great idea. How can we expand on it? How can we put it into action? And how can we make it even better? And it just gives a basis for more thinking and more planning, so that it could something better, or not better, but more can be implemented to make that growth even better than you forecast.
Just that part as well. Like if someone comes up with an idea, and that whole kind of thing, then of giving them the ownership and going, yeah, do you want to run this? All of a sudden, like they're in charge. They're not looking at, okay, if I do this, it's going to take me an extra hour today. Are you going to pay me for that hour? they're like,
Mm.
yeah, I'm in charge of this. Like this is my
Yeah, yeah.
baby now. I'm
Ownership.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm working that, and it is such a big thing. And that's exactly what happened within this business. There's a lot of buzz there now. They were in a similar way where, okay, you look at what they're doing, you kind of go, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. You could be doing this over here, and even they, not that they were reluctant, but they obviously had to weigh up the risk
Mm.
because can we grow too quickly? Yeah, of course you can.
Mm.
So let's look at the right way of doing it. I think sometimes that there is that where even if you take a sole trader and you talk about growth and stuff like that, straight away they get a bit scared where they're just like, well, if I'm dealing with 6 clients a month at the minute, if I double that to 12, I'm going to have no time.
Mm.
And it's like, right, okay, well, let's look at the processes actually. Let's look at how you
Yeah.
actually deal with things. Where are you wasting time? Where can you actually streamline things? Where can you make things work better for you? How can you take on more clients and still spend the same time as you do now on that? And
Yeah.
again, that may sound insane, but actually, it's a lot easier to do that than trying to take on, more clients with what you're doing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. And this is something we keep talking about time and time again, is that sell to your existing clients first. You don't have to spend. People say, "I need more leads. I need more customers. I need more of this." And you say, and yes, perhaps, but let's look at who you've got, how much value you give. Because again, it comes back down to value. What value are you giving them? What do they need? Can you provide it? Can you provide that extra value to your existing customers? So there's no increase of customers. There may be a little bit of increase in activity on your part to be able to deliver something new or something to upgrade something, but you're not having to spend all that marketing time. So first of all, look at what you can do from your existing database, because they may really, really be looking for something, a solution to something that you never have even asked, and yet you provide. You might provide something that you've never even thought of. There, they won't be interested in that. When actually they're champing at the bit for something like that.
Yeah.
And that, you're not making money for them in the sense of making money. You're actually giving them extra value for which they'll pay. So all of a sudden you're saying, okay, well, we've got this. This could probably fit the bill. And they say, oh, it's what I've always wanted.
Yeah.
So now you've got an extra sale. They're even happier with you, so they're going to be more loyal, and then that could lead on to something else. But the point is, you've got to try and see what you can do for your existing customer base first, because that's the least expensive option to grow your revenue, and then start looking at maybe bringing in new people. But
I think
not,
that's such a big topic to pick up on. I mean,
yeah,
I think this is something that we're advocates of, and I'm especially an advocate of this within marketing. Is I think a lot of people think when it comes to growth, when it comes to marketing, it's all about spending money. Like
yeah,
for me is like, look, let's look at what's working first. Let's look at how we increase what's working. How do we build off of what's working? Let's try some other stuff as well. You
yeah,
know, we only chuck money into something once we know it's working.
yeah, yeah,
And that's
exactly,
what
yeah,
we do the same. Yeah, talk about like the kind of momentum builder. I think anyone who comes into that, as much as we have the structure, we have the group sessions and all this kind of stuff. Everyone is an individual. Everyone's at a different stage. Everyone has a different view and stuff like that. The whole kind of point there is to look at quickly. Okay, look, how can you quickly move from point A to point B?
yeah,
Whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, how do you achieve that? And like you said, well, we've had people come in and it's like, oh yeah, I want to grow to like 7 figures and stuff like that. It's like, do you really? Because actually you're talking about you just want an extra 10K a year, and that's going to make a big difference. Making an extra 10K is going to be a different focus than making,
oh
a
yeah, yeah,
kind of,
yeah,
900 and something thousand. It's like,
yeah, yeah,
and it's the case of you can make that 10K, it's going to relieve so much pressure, and then it's going to give you options, and it's going to give you time to look at, grow into 7 figures if that's what you want at that time. But let's
mm,
just get that 10K first, and making that 10K, like you said, like coming back to Sanjo with 500K turnover, need an extra 50K. Well, how do we get 10% out of our existing customer base? That's not that difficult, is it?
no, no, it's not. That's
And
not.
there will
And
probably be people who want to support you as well. Like if you're that kind of local business and you have that clientele that you look after, and you go to them and say, look, we might need to put our prices up, or we might need to charge you a bit more on this, or actually, do you know what? To help us, we've come up with this kind of product or this kind of service. Would you, join us for that?
yeah, and there's a fantastic example again from an IT company I know of that did exactly that. They wanted to grow, and they were looking at ways of growing. And I remember talking. This wasn't necessarily a coaching session. They just happened to be in the same network that I was, and I suggested that. Well, what do you sell at the moment? Da, da, da. And I said, well, how can you turn that into something that into more of a membership type thing and give extra value so that people will pay for it? And so they came up with this thing, this service product where they looked after your PCs remotely, and they looked after your antivirus and all the rest of it. Nothing earth shattering. It's something they knew about but never had put it together as a package. And they suddenly thought, oh, put this together for a membership fee per month. We can offer this. And then they thought, okay, we can scale it up. So they have a big offering for big companies that have got to sort 20 or 30 PCs. Small people like, one or two laptops or something, and another one in between. And it's transformed their business. It really has, because now they spend most of their time, they've got a team into this, most of their time of their business time, I'm not saying, increase their time, but their business time has gone from selling to now supporting what they know. There's very little to sell because it's worked on referral to a lot of cases. So they've offered a referral to customers, say, talk to your friends about it and bring them in, and you get this and they'll get this. So now there's a referral thing going on, which is now working. Sales activity has been able to drop because it's being sold by their own existing network of customers. And as the customers grow, which they're obviously helping, then the customers take on a bigger plan.
And that kind of sales part as well is that you get to that part where if you are supporting someone, if you're giving someone that service, when they're looking for something which is either adjacent or an add-on or something like that, they come to you for the advice.
Yeah.
So like you said, IT support, it could easily be that part where it goes, do you know what? We're looking at getting some new laptops. Which ones should we get? Well, look, do you know what? We can help you with that because we supply stuff as well. It could be a case of, do you know what? Your computer keeps crashing. It's probably a case of it makes sense to upgrade now. If you want to help with that, we can help with it. But this is the type of processor we would recommend. That kind of thing. And all of a sudden, your sales grow because of that. And it is interesting. And like we're saying, with Company A, with Sandra, there are so many different things like that they could look to put in place that they could really take advantage of that. They don't do it. Whereas when you come to Company B, like with Danny, they aren't doing necessarily that kind of stuff where, they're adding extra stuff on. They kind of just grew what they had. But what happens there is that keeps paying.
Yeah.
And as it keeps paying, it means that more and more revenue comes in. And as more revenue comes in, they obviously get to that kind of turnover. And that turnover now means that as they look to grow the business, by looking to grow 20, 30, 50, whatever kind of percent each year, because of the amount of turnover that they do, they earn even more and more as they're going through. And it's like that kind of thing there is like, we look at the cost of inaction. Now, if you look at the cost of inaction between these two businesses, I'm not saying that, if Sandra would have went with us in the beginning, that she would be on 3 million now, right? But it's a case of just going, what could be if they would have taken that leap of faith, if they would have just, trusted in themselves and gone, I am intentional about growing. I want to grow. It's not a case of going, okay, we can go from 500K to 3 million. But could we have gone from 500K? Could they be at a million now? Could they be at 700? Could they be at 1.2? Is that difference of going, Company A, Company B? What was the real difference? That intention.
Yeah, that's right. And that's and that cost of inaction, when you talk to people about it, it's so difficult for people to understand and see. And that's why we took these two examples today, because you could talk about the cost of inaction until you're blue in the face. And not a lot of people don't quite. I'll say they don't understand it. They do understand it, but they can't quite get a grasp on it until you do a comparison. Say, well, okay, similar companies, similar turnover, 3 years. Companies here is still in the same place. In fact, a little bit more precarious than they may have been a couple of years ago. Other company, that's the cost of inaction, and the cost of inaction is not just financial, but it's the stress and the worry and all the other stuff where Sandra is really getting quite stressed out about it. Whereas Danny can say, hey, look at this, we're growing well. We've got great team, we've got great products, we're growing. And that was totally different position to be in. And what a fantastic position that Danny's in now compared to Sandra, who is, I imagine, getting pretty squeaky at this point, thinking, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And yet the solution, as you said, doesn't necessarily need to work with us, but the solutions are not that difficult and they are there, easy to get. But it's just I've got to make that decision to press that button or to make that phone call to say, yes, let's do it. Let's start working on it.
I
That's all
mean,
it takes.
that part there as well, we said about that social media company, £100 a month, but I know it's going to be no good. They would probably do that for 6 months, right? And probably not think much of it, right? You're going to spend £600 anyway. Why not take that and get someone to look at your Google ads? It's like it's as simple as that, isn't it? And going where can these Google ads be optimized to work better for us? What else could we do around that and stuff? But that kind of cost of inaction, mate. I think this is where we work really well together because we have different perspectives. Where I'm focused on that kind of marketing and sales and process side and strategy and all that kind of growth part. So for me, when I look at cost of inaction, I'm like 500,000, 3 million and stuff like that. But like when you were saying there, by looking at kind of mindset and aspirations, it's like, yeah, but what about the energy?
The energy waste.
What about the waste of time? What about the waste of just why have that unnecessary stress?
Mm.
And it is like thinking about that. It's like that's even worse than money, isn't it? Because when does that start eating in then to your day, your family?
Everything, doesn't it? I mean, stress causes problems at work, at family, home. You work longer. Most people who are stressed out will be in the office longer, probably not doing anything effective at all. But they're so stressed that they think, I've got to be here. I've got to try and do this. I've got to try and get that done. And then the family, their partners, their loved ones don't see them as much. Da 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 da. The whole thing spirals up until it gets to the stage where it can cause relationship problems. And you just see that in so many businesses where the owners and their partners just have got issues, and it's because of the business. And we all know that running a bit. I mean, don't get me wrong, running a business is quite hard, very hard at times, quite hard most of the time. But if you think correctly and think cleverly and get the help you need, and that's the big thing we're talking about today, isn't it? The cost of inaction, not getting the help you need, it crucifies your thinking. You can't think straight when you're under pressure. When you're stressed, you make bad decisions. Bad decisions lead to even further demise of your business and demise of everything around you, and you become a difficult person to live with. And the staff see that in the business as well as the family see that.
It's massive, isn't it?
Yeah,
Massive.
it's huge. I mean, it really is huge.
I just thinking then, that whole kind of thing, like you just said there, like business is hard. I think the times that we live in today, like business is kind of showcased on Instagram and stuff like that as being really easy. And look, it's simple when you think about it, right? Something to sell, somewhere to sell from, someone to sell to is simple, but it isn't easy. It requires hard work. It requires dedication. It requires smart efforts being put in place. And it may take time. It may take resources. It may take funds to obviously get to that point. But the whole kind of thing there is like, look, if it's easy, if it's hard, whatever it is, it's not just a case of winging it. It's not just going to be an overnight kind of thing. You have to be intentional about wanting it, and then that way you build towards something. And you spoke earlier about, okay, look, that 3 million may seem a bit of a stretch if you put it in place now. Now, you as a business owner, you as an individual, you can have your targets in place being 3 million, right, in 3 years' time. But we teach this with strategy, is that, okay, if we take 3 million in 3 years' time, let's break that down by 3 years. Let's break those years down by quarters. Let's break those quarters down into months. Let's break those months down into weeks. All of a sudden now we know what we need to do to win the week. And if we keep winning those weeks, we're going to add up to our 3 million in 3 years.
Yeah, and in that's such a brilliant expression used there. Win the week. I mean, that's what it's all. Yeah, when in the I'm just producing this journaling system for intentional journaling. But that is all about, and that is about winning the day. So I talk about winning the day and making that day successful. Because every day, even if you're in, even in, when you have a business that is really causing you aggravation and stress, that there's normally a success somewhere that you can highlight. And the whole point about this is focusing on that success and just taking that taking that glimmer of success. Say, well, we've done that. Why can't we do something better tomorrow? And just win the day, but win the week is brilliant. You get to stages. How can you win that week? Because life is going to throw all sorts of curveballs and all sorts of rubbish at you. We know that's a given. That's a given whether you do anything or not. It just happens.
Yeah.
So what can you put in place to win that week? And the whole intentional thing is thinking about, right, okay, what could happen this week that's going to set me back? And be prepared for it. Like the winning the money on the lottery. Be prepared for it. Think, right, if this happens, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to think about doing this so that I can maybe get around that hurdle this way. And all of a sudden you're a little bit more prepared. I'm not saying you're totally prepared, but you're a little bit prepared to think, right, I could see that coming up and I've managed to get around it. And so instead of it stopping you in the tracks, you think, right, got past that one, okay, what's the next thing? And then at the end of the week, you do the review and you can see where you've won the week. And that is just, win the week is such a powerful phrase. And it's easy, isn't it? Because it's a week. We're not talking about win the year. We're not
Yeah.
talking about win the quarter. It's just win the week. Just concentrate on the week ahead.
And again, that doesn't have to be that, I need to make X amount of money this
No,
week.
no.
It could just be a case of, do you know what? That social media that I've been putting off, I'm going to create my month's worth of posts this week.
Yeah. Yeah,
It
yeah.
could be that, do you know what? That podcast that I haven't got around to recording, I'm going to record it.
Yeah.
That blog I haven't added on, I'm going to do that this week. And you can obviously stack that out in a way, however it works for you. You can have that. You could have 12 things on that you're going to win the week with.
Yeah.
But what we want to do really is we get to that end of that week and we ask ourselves that honest question. I call it the Friday question because, we do it on a Friday before the weekend, but it's a case of going, look, did I hit my targets this week?
Mm.
The targets that I set, did I hit them? And just being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like, right, okay, if I didn't hit them, what was the real reason? Was it me? Could I have done better? Do I need to adjust it now for next week? What do I need to do to make sure that, okay, even if I didn't win this week, or even if I got part of the way of winning, but I didn't fully win how I wanted, how do I add that on to next week? Or how do I add that on over the next couple of weeks to make sure that by the time I get to the end of the month, I've won the month or I've won the quarter?
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing is, I've got in the journaling system, I've got these things, rocks, pebbles, and sand. We've already talked about that. And you list down some rocks you want to get through in the day. It's unlikely in some cases you'll get through all of them, because just by nature that you have intention to get this done, and then something fires and gets in the way. And I list a number of rocks, whereas people might only have one or two. But I know some people who put down 5 or 6, and they never reach the end. But the point is they carry it on to the next day and the next day and all something. And because they're carrying them on and because they're constantly thinking about it, and this happens all the time, and I'm amazed at how much it happens for me. Sometimes something will suddenly click, but all of a sudden you can manage that and something else as well. And it's difficult to describe because, it's difficult to describe, but something just comes along and you suddenly think, if I do that, I can get this done as well. And then that will lead on to a bit of success there. And all of a sudden, it's because you're constantly thinking about how best to do something, you just become better. You might just have researched something on the internet. For example, let's use a very, very practical example. Someone you may be looking at, the CRM system I've got doesn't work. It isn't up to the business. I need to know what works better for me. Now, they could ask someone like yourself and say, what do you recommend? Or they could go on the internet and then say, oh, that looks pretty good. The reviews are good. And then come back and say, I'm thinking of putting this into place. Yeah, good or bad. And then someone says, no, that's good. That's going to be good. And it's going to be efficient because you can add this, you can change this, you can tweak this. And all of a sudden they put a system in place that's that's helped them further to win the week because it's got rid of an obstacle that may have been in the way in the first place. And that's just a
no,
practical.
I totally buy into that because when you were saying there, for what I see, this happens for me a lot. Is that I could be working on something, and it will give me an idea for something else. And in that way, I'm just like, okay, I need to make a note of that because that's great. And like you said, with the CRM thing, it could just be a case of you're researching the CRM systems, and it talks about it integrates with this kind of email system, and you're like, why don't I have an email system? And all of a sudden, you're like, I can actually speed stuff up here if I put an email system.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's that kind of stuff there. And I think there's so much from that. I think from looking to kind of get to the point where we sum this episode up, right? And we talk about, I'll let you talk about the kind of intentional stuff, but coming back to just that kind of planning and strategy and stuff like that, for me, what I really like is that you can do anything today, but you can't do everything today.
No.
And that's where we talk about winning that week and stuff like that. It's just like, okay, look, be intentional, move towards everything that you're doing. I will just say, look, if anyone's listening, you're just like, I know I need to be doing something, but I don't know what. Like, go and check out Momentum Builder, right? Get in touch with us, but we'll go straight to check out Momentum Builder. It's a couple of £100 a month, and you can take 3 months and get a one-to-one, with one of us or both of us or whatever it is, and we can actually give our input on what it is that you're trying to do and guide you forward. But lots of different training and coaching sessions and private messenger and stuff like that, and all kinds of stuff we're always adding into that. So definitely go and check that out. And as always, pass this on to anyone that you think will find it useful. Give us a like, subscribe, comment, all that sort of stuff wherever you're listening. We appreciate that. But Mark, handing back over to you, summing up this episode, where do you want to go?
Wow, we've covered so much ground, haven't we? I think it comes back down to the original we were talking about is asking yourself, what is the cost of inaction? Is that and like we said, it's not just financial. What is the total cost? The whole cost of inaction. If you're not taking action and things start to decline, what is that going to cost you? And I think it's just that it's very, very difficult to gauge, but there is a cost of there's a huge cost of inaction, and sometimes it's too easy just to think, it doesn't matter. But think again.
100%. And I'm just going to add on to that and say, look, sometimes you might feel like there's no way out, right? Just get in touch with us.
Yeah, there always is.
Yeah. And I think if there's just something we can kind of look at and stuff like that and even point you in the right direction, that we will do, right? So wherever you're listening, there'll be a link to our website. You can get in touch there, or any of the social media platforms, Strategy and Conversions, or email us support@strategyandconversions.com. And look, we'll look forward to speaking with you, helping you, and we can work together moving forward even better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Mark, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah. And thanks for watching, everybody.
Don't know what the topic could be next week, but I'm sure we'll think about it in the meantime. For our listeners, look, if there's anything you want us to talk about, again, get in touch with any of those ways or comment wherever, and we'll pick that up. So Mark, catch you next time.
Yeah. Cheers, everyone.
See you then.